What's going on YouTube? Sean here, and welcome to day number 29 of my Godzilla rewatch. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Godzilla Final Wars. That's right, I'm actually recording on my microphone this time. Memorial weekend, I can finish talking about this whole series. But anyways, Godzilla Final Wars, I remember when this movie came out, and it was the big 50th anniversary of Godzilla. It was the final entry in the Godzilla franchise that they were advertising. It was a whole big deal for me. You know, I had to see, like, images of it. Like, this is, like, earlier days on the internet for me, at least, per se. I was looking on it. I was, like, looking at still images for Final Wars. I had to wait a bit for this one to come out. Like, I know it was released in 2004. I can't remember when it came out on DVD, but I remember going to Hollywood Video, of all places. And I picked this thing up. I watched it. This was, what, like, 2005? Yeah, it was, I think it was, like, 2005, 2006 before I finally got around to seeing this movie. And I was super excited to watch it. Was it around that time? I don't fucking know. But anyways, I was super excited to finally watch this film. Very much amped up. Like, here we go. Godzilla's finally coming. I go in. I watch the movie. And back then, I loved this thing. I was like, oh, it was a great closure to the whole series. Very emotional. All the different monsters show up. It was cool to see. Nowadays, I watch this thing. I enjoy it. But by God, this is the most batshit insane Godzilla film ever made. I swear to God. Like, it's just too much. It just bombasts you with everything imaginable. You have, like, hundreds of different monsters. You have fucking mutant humans just flying around on wires. There's so many fucking explosions. Like, there's more explosions in this movie than every single Michael Bay film ever directed, combined. That's how many explosions are in this thing. Everything blows up. You know, people are fighting around Matrix style on wires. I'm like, then the kaiju are fighting like that. There's a lot of hokey, ridiculous moments. There's this really over-the-top villain who I absolutely love, Controller X or whatever his name is. This dude is fucking great. He's honestly next to the Simians. This dude's my favorite. This dude might be my favorite now upon rewatching because he's so charismatic and just so over-the-top hammy, and he's having the time of his life. He's so freaking over-the-top that he just gets crazier and crazier as the movie goes on. I fucking love this guy. Like, even if you like just the way he expresses himself, just the way he kind of moves around his body. It's very, like, you don't even need to hear, like, the actual dialogue. You can just see by his facial features, his body language, that's the word I'm looking for. His body language really carries himself to something universal. He's just a really, really funny bad guy. And there's just Kamehameha energy blast type waves. The Godzilla is just wrecking shit everywhere. There's just so much going on. It's impossible to fathom. Every time I watch this movie, I just have to sit back and I'm like, oh my God, it's just too much. I just can't handle all this shit that's going on in this movie. There's so much stuff with mutant humans and Kaisers and Exilian invasions. The Exilians are back from Invasion of the Astro Monster, done much better this time around, I think. And finally, like, the world, you got, like, Don Frye, who's got, like, the samurai sword, this general. You got some other Godzilla cast members that show back up, like Kumi Mizuno, who's been in a lot of them, Akira Takarada, Kenji Sahara, of course, is in there. Don Frye, like I said, is speaking English. You have so many monsters. You have Godzilla, you have Manda, you have Mothra, you have Gigan, you have Rodan, you have the American Godzilla Zilla, you have King Caesar, you have Kumonga, Kamacuras, Ebirah, Hedorah. There's just so much stuff going on in this movie that you can't even fathom. Minya's in it, like I said. There's so many freaking monsters that it's just impossible to keep up. Anguirus or whatever. It's just so much, and it is a lot to handle. I mean, watching this movie now, I'm just like, I have to sit back and just stop. It's almost too much, I think. And it just overwhelms you with too much shit going on. And, like, the stuff with the humans, like, that's so over-the-top crazy and action-packed that you kind of become desensitized to it after a while, I'm not going to lie. That when the kaiju stuff comes up, it's like, oh, we're now into this movie. Oh, yeah, the Godzilla stuff. Like, they just went all fucking out. Like, this is the finale. Let's just go fucking crazy, hoping that, you know, this movie would do well at the box office. Unfortunately, this movie didn't do that well at the box office, surprisingly, even though it had kind of like every little thing. It was like one of the lower grossing ones in the Millennium series. You'd think 50th anniversary, all the different monsters coming together, the big closure of the Godzilla franchise, everyone would show up, but I guess I remember I was excited to see this thing, and I finally saw it, and, you know, obviously I loved it back then. Is it my favorite of the Millennium series? No. But I do find some enjoyment. If I want something batshit insane crazy, I will put on Final Wars. So if that's more up your alley in terms of Godzilla films, I'm sure this one's for you. But anyway, so blah 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 stuff. The plot of this one is basically all these monsters are showing up around the world. They get and like the world has like their own defense force, the Earth Defense Force, that does battle with these types of different monsters. They also have Godzilla, who's the biggest threat. So Godzilla's like freezing somewhere in the Arctic. All these monsters just start showing up at once. Earth Defense Force has to come up with a way to stop them. And as soon as they're ready to do battle with their ships like the Gotenga, which I believe was in Atragon, if I'm not mistaken, all these different creatures start showing up. And then the Exilians come in, they find a way to get rid of the monsters, they, befriend the humans, I guess, and then apparently the Exilians, of course, like most alien races in a Godzilla franchise, are of course evil. So the Exilians come in, doing their thing, wiping shit out, and the humans have to find a way to stop them. But then again, you have these mutants who can take down kaiju on their own, like Ebirah, like they're flying around on wires doing flips and millions of explosions behind them. You have the Exilians just do Invasion of the Body Snatcher type shit, where they're like wearing human skin or whatever. They're doing their stuff. They want to herd the humans as cattle because they use them for whatever. Then all the monsters start showing up. Humanity's down to its last hope. We got this guy named Osaki, who is also a mutant, but is also this thing called a Kaiser, which is like a 1 in a million chance, just like the main villain X. And then Earth is pretty much down to its last hope. So Don Fry's character decides to take Ozaki and everybody and fly the Gotengo down to Antarctica, release Godzilla, and have him go across the world, wiping out every single monster in his path, and then going directly to the mothership, and then at the end they're going to put him right back into the ice. That's the plan with this one. So Godzilla does that. He fights pretty much every monster that you can think of. I mean, there's a lot of Godzilla monsters that don't show up in the movie, which it's kind of disappointing you don't see everyone, but it was still cool to see him fight an enormous amount of monsters. Like, he first starts out with Gigan. Every monster in this movie, outside of Monster X, isn't really a challenge at all for Godzilla. I mean, that's both a blessing and a curse for this film. It just goes to show you how powerful Godzilla's become. The way I'd compare it is, like, think about it in, like, Dragon Ball. Like, Showa-era Godzilla would struggle against all these different monsters on his own. But imagine taking, like, Heisei burning Godzilla, or, like, let's take Super Saiyan and go... It's like in Dragon Ball. Let's say, for instance, Goku went Super Saiyan, okay? Like, early on in the series, it's like him going back and fighting the Ginyu Force as a Super Saiyan. Like, everyone else is completely inferior to him. Like, the threat is no longer there at these different monsters. So that's kind of where Godzilla's at this one. Godzilla is ridiculously overpowered. That's, but like I said, my issue with that is the fights are just meaningless. Like, every other monster fight that used to be a challenge is just not significant to him anymore. It kind of kills the suspense of it all. But I'm like, at the same time, like, Godzilla's a pure badass, just wiping shit out. Like, nothing can stop him. Until Monster X comes in, they get their weird kung fu type fights. Like, the monster battles in this movie, like I said, it's so over the top ridiculous. Like, you got Godzilla jumping for goals. It's kind of like a combination, like the cheesy moments, the show era. Like, this is just a best of type movie. It's like, okay, we like these elements of it. We like this shit. Let's throw this stuff in here. Let's throw this in there. Let's throw everything in there. It's just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just do whatever the hell we want. Let's have a Matrix fight scene in the middle of this movie. Let's have Godzilla playing soccer with Anguirus, King Caesar, and Rodan. Because why the fuck not? Let's have Linkin Park playing as Godzilla just eviscerates the American Godzilla, Zilla, within like 15 seconds and not even really have a battle. I mean, I would have liked to have seen... I mean, at the same time, I'm like... I would have liked to have seen a better battle with Godzilla fighting these things, because afterwards, it's like, okay, these monsters are useless. They used to be a challenge, I get that, but I wanted to see Godzilla actually, be tested a bit by some of these other monsters, but he really isn't. Nothing until Monster X, which is both, like I said, good and bad, shows Godzilla's more powerful than ever before, and it's cool to see him just kind of take down all these monsters, but I'm like, I kind of like a bit in the Showa era where he actually had a challenge, Then he comes into Monster X, which is this new-looking monster, and then Monster X, of course, going full Dragon Ball right now, turns into, evolves into his next form, and becomes Kaiser Ghidorah, who's super big, super jacked, starts fighting Godzilla. Of course, he's controlled by the Exilians or whatever. Godzilla's getting his ass handed to him. The Ozaki, or whatever this dude's name is, it goes toe-to-toe with the controller of Planet X or whatever, of the Exilians, just... batshit kung fu fighting. He's like, you're a Kaiser, I'm a Kaiser, blah, 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 blah. They get in there, Godzilla starts fighting. Crazy amount of action, crazy amount of explosions. Then Manila's just there for whatever reason. Can apparently grow different sizes. I can't even fathom so much that's going on in this movie. It's just too much. It really is too much. I enjoy Final Wars for what it is. It's not my favorite of the Millennium series, because, like I said, you just become overwhelmed and desensitized after a while, after all the batshit stuff. And other issues I don't like about this movie... like I said, I don't like all the monsters being completely that weak compared to Godzilla. I'm like, these are giant monsters. I want to have a little bit of a challenge. I don't want them just to be like fodder. I mean, I want Godzilla to be stronger, obviously, but I want to put up a little bit of a fight. These aren't really fights. It's just like he just flicks, you know, it was nothing. These are nothing opponents, and it just makes them feel insignificant to the whole thing. I'm like, these are big monsters that have fought in Godzilla, like, as the main protagonist in his films. I kind of expected a little bit more. That's an issue I have. Another thing is the film it's shot and it looks kind of ugly. Like in the early 2000s, a lot of these movies I would see like had this like really ugly yellow like tint to the films, and like it visually does not look that appealing. Like there's some really bad CGI in this film that really takes you out of it. I know like I prefer practical, but like a lot of the effects of the Heisei era look better and hold up more than some of the effects in this. Like I said, there's some really bad CGI that I've noticed in this film too. I don't like that filter that they put on the camera. It's this ugly blue. It's this ugly like yellow filter. It's kind of like a digital. I think this film was shot. I think this was shot in digital. And there's like always something kind of ugly to like movies back in this day and age. Like it didn't look like classic film, CinemaScope or anything like that. It looked really really ugly. Like in terms of some of the visuals in this movie. Granted, Godzilla's badass. His design is great. Arguably the best. I think, like, in terms of the body, like, the torso and that down, it's pitch perfect. If they would have taken, like, say, the GMK head and kind of stuck it on this body and just kind of, like, tweaked it just a little bit, I think that would be quintessential perfect Godzilla design. But the design of this film, much better than the other films of the Millennium Entries. Outside of, say, GMK's, you know, head, so... That's that. Music-wise, the musical score, there's some good stuff. I particularly like the ending track. For instance, when it's Godzilla and Minilla, Minilla has like his final stand with Godzilla. Like, he's just like, okay, no more violence. I actually really find the ending quite touching in this one in terms of Godzilla films. Eventually, Kaiser Ghidorah gets wiped out by Godzilla. Just wipes him out. Minilla shows up, you know, convinces Godzilla's like, okay, Godzilla, we're done fighting now. I think it's time to end this. And then the humans stop their fighting against Godzilla. Godzilla and Minilla just kind of just go off into the ocean. Where the fuck was Minilla this whole time? Why is he just in the middle of Japan, just kind of standing around nowhere? Like, was he in the ice this whole time? Like, I don't know. Why is he still so little? And why can he just magically shapeshift in between sizes? I know he did that in Godzilla's Revenge, but that was basically a dream sequence. But this one, he just can somehow do it. I don't know. It's just so fucking crazy. Anybody who watches this movie is just going to sit back and go, what the hell did I just watch? And I just said, there is some good action sequences, but the stuff with the humans, there's just so much of this shit going on. It kind of takes you out of the feeling that Godzilla's in this movie. Like, there's an hour of this movie Godzilla's not even, like, mentioned or really anything at all. Obviously, you got all these other monsters, but the focus of this being a Godzilla film, you just completely forget he's kind of in the movie at some point. Because you got all this other stuff, these humans fighting and their Matrix-y shit going on. I'm like, this is just... They're trying so hard to be badass and epic in every scene that it is kind of charming in a way. But the focus on Godzilla is completely lost for most of this movie. Except at the very end. Because we pay to see these movies for what? Godzilla. Because he's the main star. He's the main draw. It's like when you go see Batman. Why do you see a Batman movie? For Batman. Although some people may see, like, the villains. But, yeah, for the most part, we go to see these movies for Godzilla. And the focus, it gets kind of lost in a while that Godzilla's even in. And that's kind of one of my beefs with this film. Pacing-wise, it starts off pretty strong. But there comes a point in the movie where it definitely does drag at certain points in the film. For instance, when their humans are kind of just, like, standing around, really not doing too much before the Exilians attack. There's, like, a little stretch of the movie that just kind of drags for me, personally. Visual effects and special effects... Again, a lot of them aren't very good. There's some really piss-poor CGI in this film. It's a lower-budget film. It's only like $20 million. But some of the shots just look really, really bad. But there are some good use of miniatures at times. It is a Godzilla film, so I'm going to find something to enjoy in it. Is it my favorite of the Millennium? No. But there's a certain charm to this one that a lot of Godzilla films, you know, at least in the Millennium series, don't necessarily have. Like, Godzilla 2000 and Megaguirus don't have the same kind of charm as this one does. This one is just so over-the-top crazy, just like, okay, we're going to throw everything at you. So if that's what you want in your Godzilla film, you got a bit of everything in this one. It's a nice little tribute to the franchise. Nice little callbacks throughout. It's just like, okay, this is the end. we're going to kind of end it on a high note. We're not going to kill Godzilla off this time, which I appreciate. Honestly, just seeing Godzilla just and the humans make peace with each other, I feel like that's a pitch perfect ending, because we follow Godzilla. He's been through some shit. The humans have been through some shit. Minilla just, you know, sticking his arms like, okay, Godzilla, enough is enough. I think it's time that we just set aside our differences for once and just learn to get along. Godzilla does with Minya. He goes back into the ocean. The music plays, and the music, that's when it's at its best in the films, like do 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 do. And then you get that one final triumphant roar, and then we get some images over the credits of the entire Godzilla franchise. And it was nice. I remember seeing this film, getting a little bit sad and choked up, knowing that this was the last Godzilla film, at least for a long time. We wouldn't get another Godzilla film for at least 10 years, although Godzilla would make a cameo in the film Always Sunset on 3rd Street 2, which was a nice little cameo. But at the same time, it's just like, you do kind of miss him after a while. So it was nice. We had a nice 10-year rest of the franchise before 2014 really came back in and kicked things into high gear some more. So, yeah, Godzilla Final Wars, it is a nice bit of closure to the Millennium series. Afterwards, obviously, we get the legendary MonsterVerse, and then we would also have the start of the Reiwa era with the Shin Godzilla and the anime trilogy. So, stay tuned for those. Overall consensus, I still like Final Wars. Like I said, I do have my issues with it here and there. Some pacing issues, some really bad special effects at times that really kind of take me out of it. There is a certain charm to miniatures in the older films that when you get kind of digital and ugly looking, it really does take me out of it. The film is not a very good looking movie. It's not very well shot. It's a really shoddy digital looking tint to the camera that I don't really like. You see this in a lot of straight to video movies. An example is like some of the straight to video Hellraisers kind of have this look to them. It just doesn't, I don't know, I don't think this was shot on film. I think it was shot in digital. I could be wrong, but it definitely looks kind of ugly, whereas there's some nice little visuals in the previous films. It doesn't really feel like I'm there. There's just something about it that just looks off to me, personally. But what are your thoughts on Godzilla Final Wars? Let me know in the comment section down below. We can chat about it some more. I know my thoughts are kind of scattershot, but that's Godzilla Final Wars for you. It's fucking crazy. It's so out of this world batshit nuts that I just try and watch it and my brain can't really comprehend what I just saw. Favorite parts of this movie, obviously Godzilla is awesome. It's cool to see some of the other monsters in here. So many. Not every monster, unfortunately, but a lot of monsters I was surprised make cameos, like King Caesar and stuff. No Jet Jaguar, which is disappointing. No Megalon, which is another disappointment. Ebra even makes a cameo, which is nice. Although he gets kind of taken down by some of the military before, you know, getting rescued and taken away. But for the most part, most of the monsters show up, which is nice. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Like I said, leave your comments down below. Come back tomorrow, because we got a special video where we're not going to just be talking, we're going to be talking about Godzilla 2014. But since I'm kind of running out of days, I'm going to combine Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island into a singular video. So for the Godzilla rewatch for tomorrow's video, it's a special double feature, because, like I said, I ran out of time to like do things like the day of or whatever. So there will be a rewatch video that's going to combine Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island for tomorrow. So look forward to that. Then we go into Shin Godzilla. Then I have to suffer through the animated trilogy one more time. And then finally, the day of, honestly, that day of when I finally upload that video for the animated trilogy, it'll come on Thursday. That'll be when I see the King of the Monsters movie. So there will be something on that night too. So thank you all so much for watching. I know this one's been a bit longer. I've just been kind of just rambling on and off about certain things for however many hours. But I'm excited. I'm super excited for the new movie. I've been eagerly anticipating. I've been counting down the days, counting down the hours, counting down the minutes. We're almost fucking there. I've uploaded so many freaking videos since last month. I'm ready to just keel over and collapse. I've never uploaded this many videos in such a short span of time. I've uploaded almost 70 videos since last month. That's fucking crazy for me in particular. So definitely got a lot of stuff coming out, more content coming to the channel. Very much looking forward to getting the shit out there. Thank you all so much for watching. I've rambled on long enough. Take care out. Bye-bye then. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Peace out. Godzilla 2014 Kong Skull Island. Tomorrow. Be ready. Booyah.